please. Thank you, Nina.
Thank you so much.
All right, so a historian and an engineer walk into a lab, and
He's explaining how I was misled from my earlier career on the American frontier to frontiers today.
That's right, yeah. So today we tell that story, but in fact, my colleague Warren and I represent a much larger team that's worked on this for over 5 years now. And so far we've tallied over 100 undergraduate students that worked on creating this platform. In addition to collaborations across institutions and disciplines, both at Shenandoah University and elsewhere. So to tell you about this, first we'd like to sort of set the stage, so to speak. So if I may, yeah, thank you. So it's important to complement to sort of the title and the wonderful introduction by Nina with just kind of what this is really about and why does it matter. So there should be a video. I see it on my screen.
How does that joke end, Mohammad? A historian and a simulation engineer walk into a bar?
A lab, actually. But
lab?
Here we go.
Okay.
Now we see it. We should have audio too. Thank you.
Now here's something.
We begin today with item number 7 from the plan, the so-called Virginia Plan.
This is our moment in history.
We must do everything in our power to promote the general welfare.
We are engaged now on deciding that important subject of how to select our national executive officer, our president. No easy task.
I favor the appointment by the legislature. Give the people their voice.
I am against a popular election.
But the people are a problem.
I came here as a representative of America, and in some degree, as a representative of the whole human race.
I was pulled both ways.
That's the dilemma.
Nothing is simple.
The decision on it might be yours to make.
Ha! Other delegates will dispute you, but that is how we make decisions. Let us join them.
So you'll notice the title, which my colleague will comment on further, is The Great Experiment. But before we get there, I want to sort of evoke a few thoughts here, specifically related to a very specific sensation. And it doesn't have necessarily to do with virtual reality. You know, when you're reading a very good book or maybe watching a engaging movie, this sense of being there, this almost internal psychological feeling of being sort of lost in the environment that you're in, whether that's a real environment or one that it is simulated or you're immersed in. This sense of sort of being too engaged or maybe fully engaged to a sense that you feel like you reside in that environment, even for a few seconds. And this effect that this experience has on our awareness of where we are, and perhaps some sort of illusion that we're being transported to a different place or time. This sensation does have a name in the literature, and it's called presence. So presence, if we were to kind of focus on it, it is something that we can comment on. However, we do ask ourselves how and how do we describe it? How do we measure it? Is it even measurable? So it turns out it's pretty subjective. And in the literature, there is a separation between presence as a phenomenon and the phenomenon of immersion, right? Immersion does lead to presence, but how much? Well, it depends on you, me and everybody else, because it's very difficult to quantify. It's cognitive. It can be experienced, but really hard to describe, and it depends on the degree to which the synthetic nature of the environment that we're in goes unnoticed. But it is dependent heavily on the context and the story and the that very specific user's response to an environment like this to begin with. But the outcome is some sort of unawareness to where they are and where they are in real life and complete engagement. We focus on this phenomenon today, and we look at implications that this phenomenon has on how we retain information, and how does this relate to skill acquisition when it comes to training, perhaps? But more importantly, at least for today, is how does this matter for a science or field that is completely separate from this spectrum? And I'd like to comment on a comment by President Starr yesterday about the classification between in silos between disciplines. And one thing that we've been engaged with for years now, Warren and I, is to really do just that, is to transcend these boundaries between these domains. So, go ahead. And just to kind of set this up for Warren, what you're looking at right here is the assembly room of the installation for 1787 assembly room in Independence Hall. Most of you are no strangers to this room, and you've been there. And what this team has done, is to create a virtual counterpart of that room. This is the digital twin that this team has built by visiting and working with MPS. And together, we now have this platform that we can start to curate knowledge in. And Warren will tell us more about why.
Well, this is the room where the Declaration was debated and signed in 1776. Of course, that's part of the 250th anniversary celebration of next year. It's also the assembly room of the Pennsylvania legislature, where the Continental Congress met in 1787. Virtually, we can be in that room. And in fact, this afternoon we'll be demonstrating the great experiment. So anyone here can virtually be in Philadelphia. So the great effort of the American Philosophical Society to make this tremendous trip here is subverted by our efforts to bring you back to Philadelphia virtually. But we have to ask, what's the value added to a virtual experience? What do we gain by it? Well, let's think of virtual reality as an immersive technology, immersive history, as a medium for composition and creation, a communication. We listen to books, we listen to lectures, we listen to stories, we read books and essays, we watch movies and films, all about the human experience. We visit websites and work with their content, but we don't understand the human experience. But in virtual reality, we experience the human experience. Experience is the term of art that we use to describe engaging a virtual experience. We experience the great experiment. We can experience nature directly. We can experience in the real world, we can experience the material world directly. We can experience the social world directly. But we ask, can we experience the historical world? Can we experience the past? And that is our great experiment. We borrow or stole the phrase from George Washington, 1790, in a letter to the great English historian Catharine Macaulay, in which Washington described the establishment of our new government. That seemed to be the last great experiment for promoting human happiness. This statement is rich in meaning for us. Of course, it's the source of our great experiment. But for Washington and that generation, In 1790, the great experiment was bringing into reality, bringing into form and practice the Constitution that was drafted several years earlier. We might also pause on the term last. Probably Washington meant here the most recent experiment in Republican self-government. But he might also have been referring to the final experiment. This was a generation that was very cognizant of the fragility of Republican government, cognizant that they had to get the Constitution right. They had to make it work, because otherwise the opportunity for realizing Republican self-government in a society as large and complex as the United States might be lost forever to all people in all time. The most difficult question that they had to face was that of how to select a chief executive. In the contemporary world, no one had really ever done that. No Republican people had self-selected a chief executive. The European examples didn't fit very well. Monarchs chosen by divine right or God, by civil war, or by heredity. The delegate from Pennsylvania, James Wilson, made this clear when he said that the issue was the most difficult that the convention faced. And in fact, the convention, the delegates debated it from almost day one in early June, when Wilson first articulated the idea, to the second week in September, when it was finally adopted into the Constitution. Wilson observed that this issue would divide the people out of doors. And indeed, it has, over 250 years. More proposals for amending the Constitution and addressing the electoral system that we have, amending it or changing it, have made than for any other provision of the Constitution. Proposals, almost 800 in the years since it was originally drafted. And of course, it doesn't work as it was originally intended. And we know that. But the delegates from June to September debated this issue. They discussed it. They argued over it. They reasoned together on it. They made motions and voted, overturned those motions. They sought consensus. They sought compromise. In a sense, the debate itself was sublime, insofar as it lifted these delegates out of the ordinary and asked them to rise above themselves to seek a solution to a problem that no one had really ever faced. This sense of elevation was most clearly communicated, most pathetically, most passionately by George Mason in a letter to his son that he wrote in June of 1787, when he said, "To view through the calm, sedate medium of reason the influence which the establishment now proposed may have upon the happiness or misery of millions yet unborn is an object of such magnitude as absorbs in a manner, suspends the operation of human understanding." I think we'd agree that George Mason might have really understood what you were saying about presence in virtual reality.
Yeah, and there's a few questions that this really poses here. Mason's words really, and that's, I'll say Warren has sort of set the urgency of these moments. And the more important the moments, the more vital its implication in both education and scholarship. So we pose some questions here, and perhaps this is where the experimental nature in the name of this project comes in. Is this scholarship? Traditionally, scholarship is the creation and dissemination of new knowledge, right? So, and it's based on evidence. Well, virtual reality as a medium compared to other mediums, could this be a medium for scholarship? That's one question. The second question is, what can we learn in this state of suspended understanding that Mason talked about? So its implications in education. And then lastly, can we practice? Can we actually place people in the practice of civic discourse and actual deliberation in such an environment if we were to curate one like the same one that they were in 1787? Well,
we're very cognizant too, but let me just add about how timely this civic experience of reasoned debate is in our political society today.
Right. And so we submit to you that this is indeed a form of scholarship in the way that it unlocks forms of evidence that are otherwise do not exist in other mediums. The multisensory nature of being in a immersive environment surrounded by the content that you're doing scholarship on, by the evidence, is one form of it. Another one is the spatial understanding of the evidence. Rather than just reading the text or listening to it, we heard from Professor Moser yesterday about spatial understanding, and that resonated with me because what we articulate here is that the spatial understanding of evidence must have something to do with scholarship. And then the fact that this evokes emotion and feeling, both as a form of evidence. In terms of education, we think that this platform, this medium, addresses this generation's inclination to experience their knowledge rather than be spoon-fed their knowledge. And finally, we do indeed think that if you insert people in the practice of civic discourse and curate the environment for these rules to apply, much absent these days, then you could actually have a group of people engaged in civic discourse, unlike any other environment. So I do want to also comment. Make one more comment on the scholarship piece. And again, this is an experiment. However, this project, the Great Experiment, the virtual reality project, is set to appear on the spring catalog of the University of Virginia Press as a publication. So this is our experiment, but we have gotten to that point of scholarly publication and dissemination.
And this might be the first virtual reality experience ever published by a university press.
That's right. And to sort of bring it all together, we'd like to tell you more about how we got here, but in fact, instead of telling you, showing you.
Dusty old documents sometimes don't appeal to us.
Revisiting these values will definitely help us to remember what we were aiming at when we started our journey.
It's, as we used to say, way cool.
This was a group of people sitting around in 1787 trying to figure out what this country is going to look like.
They admitted it was the most difficult question that they faced in creating the Constitution.
You got to know what's in the Constitution. You need to know what your rights are as a person who lives in the United States.
We get to make something that is so abstract that most Americans don't even understand the Constitution.
You get to actually live in the moment in VR. You are there.
Looking at it from its completed version, it's phenomenal to see the leaps and bounds that it has come.
we've actually been able to put together the team of students, faculty, and staff that come from various disciplines to make this a reality, including history, English, media communication, virtual reality.
I love the fact that it was done with students, and the fact that the students, you know, in terms of not only the technological side of the fence, but also the side of the fence in terms of the history and the words and the actual interpretive part of it.
Wow, the students were amazing. The students were so helpful and so encouraging and so knowledgeable.
One of the proudest moments of this is that at launch, I was able to point to this project and say, this was built by students. I think this is something that we're all proud of.
Even when I'm at the very top of my game, I'm never going to be able to replicate in the classroom what somebody can get from a couple minutes of watching, you know, the great experiment.
What I did really appreciate about it is the depth that it was researched.
The rising sun chair was, I took a lot of pride in that because there was a lot of research that went into recreating that object so that it was identifiable as such.
A lot of my effort and time went into day 2. Another thing is the subtitles and captions for all that.
In VR, if it's done well and it creates that psychological immersion, man, you've got something that just really hits home.
In this situation, I've already watched a group of students understand it so deeply that they had personal, visceral perspectives on the topic.
It feels natural. It feels like you're really there. And you know it's an illusion, but it doesn't matter.
We can not only put people in the room where it happened, but we can put people in the room when it happened. And from that experience, we can create a powerful learning tool.
It could be really impactful for people that can't just imagine from reading textbooks.
We are living in a time when young people are moving increasingly into virtual reality. They're moving away from text and chalk and talk.
The goal is to get this in the classrooms, high schools, universities.
I mean, come on. It's one of these things where you have to put on the headset and experience it, and then you go, wow, I see it now.
And we invite you to do so. We invite you to do so today, next door. We actually brought the technology with us. We shipped it over to California to have you all come in next door, ballroom F, I think. Just when you go out, just take a left. We will welcome everybody to come and try it. We also welcome all of you to try it even any other time. The website that you saw, and you'll also be able to find it on these QR codes, will direct you to where you can, for your own institution, university, etc., get the great experiment, which we are making and letting go for free as an app for everyone to use. It's a virtual reality platform that I think has implications, immediate implications. But what we're most excited about is the model that this actually creates in terms of scholarship and information dissemination as one that sort of keeps up with current generations. And the question of whether or not this is scholarship is one that we keep close to our hearts. This is why our work in collaboration with the University of Virginia Press has been very crucial to what we're doing. You want to add anything?
No, just that we invite your response, your reaction, your questions, and hopefully we have a little bit of time left to do that.
Yep. Thank you.
Very good.
That was astounding and uplifting. But I want to get under the hood of your collaboration a little bit more, because I'm sure this didn't come about at random. And so the first question, I know there will be others, but briefly, if you could tell us how you two got together and decided to actually work on this, because this is not sort of an overnight project, right?
Well, let me just start with our origin story, very compressed. I'm a historian, and from the introduction, pretty traditional one, documents, books, articles, so forth and so on. But I struck up a collaboration with a gentleman you saw, J.J. Rosella, who is the director of our theater department at Shenandoah University. And we collaborated on a production. He was the director of To Kill a Mockingbird. And he asked me to develop an installation for the lobby that was relevant to Kill a Mockingbird. And what we did, and I worked with students, I worked with the black community in Winchester, the NAACP, we reconstructed in a series of panels a tragic event that took place in 1944, and that was the legal lynching of a young black man. But this was such a powerful experience, theater combined with history. JJ then moved into the world of simulation and was the founding director of our skill lab. And we talked one day and we said, let's do something big and important in the field of history, in immersive history. Joining us later, Mohammad Obeid brought all that skill in engineering and virtual reality design. So that's how the collaboration was born. It is a combination really of theater, of drama, of original experience with the reality of the past.
We could go into a lot more detail. I have one more question, but yes, we have one from the audience first.
Martin J., UC Berkeley. I was fascinated by your emphasis on the importance of presence, but I also wondered about the haunting by absences that I would like to see if you've addressed. And the absences are quite obvious. There are no women at the convention. There are no enslaved people. There are no Native Americans. So this is obviously a very, let's say, restricted, not really representative group of people making these decisions. How does your technology represent the absences that haunt the Constitutional Convention?
Yeah, so this is not the first time this question is posed. And it's true, people in the room at the time were elite white men, and telling that history is told in that way. So the individuals or avatars in this experience that you could assume the role of, which is, by the way, the experience, you get to pick which one you want to be and then engage in the debate, are all elite white men. And representation is not there. However, the production process, which also is, I claim, is also a product of this work, the process to make all of it, was a team of a very well-represented team. In fact, some of the actors that you see when, for example, when Sherman gets up, the avatar of Sherman gets up and is speaking to you, that's actually a woman who's acting behind that avatar. The question of embodiment is an ethical and a philosophical question in this world, the world of virtual reality, because you assume somebody else's avatar. And once you ask the question of representation, in this particular historical story, that question, I think, it remains open, because the history was done this way. We were asked, what about the people that were maybe outside the door, who were not in that room, but perhaps should be represented? So what we can say at this point, overall, is that this is a call to action, that if we build the platform for this specific moment in this way, I urge everybody to think about how this applies to not only their field, but also in history, telling history and telling moments that are more representative of everybody's backgrounds. This is not a moment that represents everyone. I mean, the Constitution was written by these individuals, and this is the story that we're telling here.
So let me just add that the Constitutional Convention was not designed as a representative legislative body. It was intended to bring together the most experienced people, the men in the political world. We can't change the gendered past, but we can address it, just as you mentioned. Because we hope that the great experiment doesn't end with the launch and publication of this version. We would love to see other themes incorporated into the convention itself, such as the really dynamic and candid debates on enslavement. One of the features of the Great Experiment is something we call the Independence Hall Museum, where one can really engage the spatial dimension of knowledge and wander through Independence Hall, through the assembly room, and engage delegates who, well, in drop-down panels, provide biographical information. But this museum concept as part of the Great Experiment could be readily adapted to treat themes reflecting just the silences in the convention, who was not there.
Yeah.
But then we hope that the whole idea scales up and other groups will borrow on this work, develop it further along many other themes across the whole span of history.
So I think we've run out of time, but Mohammad, you mentioned how there is an opportunity to experience this during our lunch break in the room. That'll be the room where it happened, is right next to us. I encourage everybody to experience it, but maybe not everybody can experience it. So very briefly, could you tell us what it's like to experience this? You've partnered with the National Constitution Center, where there's replicas of all the founders. You partnered with the National Park Service, who gave you after-hours access to create a virtual reality exact replica of that room. So if you very briefly, put on that a mask over there, what is it like for a student to experience the Great Experiment?
Yeah, so I mean, imagine if you haven't used a VR device, what it is it's a small display that sits an inch from your face. So when you put this display on, all of a sudden you find yourself sitting next to Benjamin Franklin, and we took the liberty of moving Franklin from the Pennsylvania table, we apologize, over to the secretary table, so he's your escort into the experience. He does one of these asides and tells you, okay, the debate is about to happen, here's what's going on. So he kind of brings you closer to the story. He's your chaperone, if you will. And then you would just watch the debate unfold, and all your job is to kind of watch it happen. But that's only level 1. We've built a curriculum of, I would say, worth 6 weeks worth of content, because after level 1, you get to pick one delegate to meet with intimately in the same room at night, and it's like, it's dark outside, and he's kind of telling you, if you meet with Wilson, he tells you about his history and what he believes in. And then at the end, he says, I'm too tired to go to the debate tomorrow, you're going to take my place. And that's level 3. So you then step back into the debate, but now you're sitting in Wilson's chair, representing him, but we give you a teleprompter. So the exact words, all you got to do is just stand up and say what he said. Level 4, we take that teleprompter away. And you get a little cheat sheet of like main points that he made, but you have to use your own words here. And we've actually done this with students. Yeah. We've deployed this in Warren's class and continue to do so for high schools around our area. But then that was in level 4, you're Wilson making the points on your own. Level 5, you're still Wilson at the debate, 1787, and here's where civic discourse comes in. But the question is not how to elect a president. The question could be a contemporary one from today. What would Wilson say were he in Congress today? That's a scary thought, by the way. If these individuals were in Congress today, what would they say about blank? You as an instructor, the teacher, the researcher, get to deploy a question to a multiplayer group of 9 participants who can see each other live as those avatars, even wave to themselves, and we've seen this happen all the time, and try to kind of debate and get to some sort of conclusion or consensus to the question that you pose. That's where the open-endedness part of it comes in. But again, I'd like to do a call for action here for everybody to think about this technology, immersive technology, and how this could contribute to your field. Again, you heard from my background, I actually focused on medical and surgical simulation, but I find myself working on the historical context. I don't find a lot of difference in the tools as software engineers use when it comes to adapting context from all these domains. So I challenge you to think about what this means to you.
The world of neuroscience, for which I'm not intellectually predisposed. But what I read and what I discover in like the programs here, particularly in this area of spatial knowledge, because what we've created is the space in which people can learn, but we can also engage in scholarship in the creation and communication of knowledge.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inspiring us all. All right.